I don't know the women's names who I'm always passing by on my street.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It is I, Emily Sophia, here to break down for you guys yet another episode of Better Call Saul. And this week we are on Alpine Shepherd Boys, so spoiler alert before we dive into the mad thick of things, as I will be bearing all in this review. And I apologize if the volume in this video is a little bit wonky. Everybody in my house is asleep, waiting for the Sandman, and I am just partying all night long, talking about television as I do, so bear with me here. But anyways, let's get into the thick of this week's episode. So yet another fascinating ride. We are continuing to progress further into the nuances of the character of Jimmy McGill. And I was just reading a review, and a very sad reality dawned upon me as I think about this show and its future and how Jimmy McGill is ultimately going to emerge as Saul Goodman. The fact of the matter, based on what we can see of Jimmy's relationship with his brother Chuck, is that there will be no Saul Goodman where there is Chuck McGill. But in the absence of Chuck McGill, i.e. something bad happening, then that could potentially serve perhaps as an impetus for the origin of Saul Goodman in earnest. Like, because we see so strongly in this episode the intense love that Jimmy has for his brother, and while he has arguably squandered that in the past and really abused the brother privilege, we get to see in this episode the way that he reacts to his brother being hospitalized and being surrounded in this hellhole of electromagnetic radiation. We see his fierce anger at anyone who comes between him and his brother, only up until the point that Howard steps onto the scene, reminding Jimmy that he has a certain amount of leverage and that he could potentially completely screw his brother over in order to get them to buy out Chuck's contract with the firm, and things get a little bit messy. But number one, of course, what we first see in this episode is a delightful little 3-client montage of as Jimmy is arguably working his way through those 7 precious voicemails that he got after climbing to death-defying heights to rescue a man who was never really in peril. We get the libertarian secessionist with $1 million of cash with his face printed on it. We get fetish sex toilet man. Need I say more? And then, of course, we get the little old lady who's trying to parse out her figurines to her relatives. And so again, very, very disparate clients. And we see that as Jimmy goes from door to door, he's becoming increasingly discouraged. Arguably, he thought that he could pull this kind of Slippin' Jimmy style stunt and then move forward, get some good, honest clientele, get himself on the right track, and just, you know, the rest will take care of itself, will it not? And the answer is kind of more on the not side of the spectrum. We see as of course, guy number 1 with his freaking taxidermized zoo house in the middle of nowhere can't even offer legitimate currency. That is how far off the track this bro is. And then we see with the well-meaning innovator, the entrepreneur of the encouragement toilet, which I think would probably encourage other behaviors in said space. And then we find that as soon as Jimmy is actually talking with Kim about his work and his new clients, and she so much as mentions the idea of him going into elder law, he pretty much leaps on the opportunity. He is ready for it after the day that he's experienced. He's so ready to fit that niche. And I think too, what kind of compels him to make that choice is, number one, his brother wanting to be able to turn this stunt, and what he knows his brother recognizes is a stunt, wanting to turn this into something that is legitimate, something that's sustainable, something that really is doing something good for the world, you know? And we see that this is something that will perhaps keep him for a time from getting too far into his slippin' Jimmy ways, which he adamantly says he's put to rest, put to bed, perhaps even put to death. But remains yet to be seen, because we've seen him really whip out some fun tricks so far in the show. But anyways, so I think he wants to do it for his brother, to be able to maintain this tenuous words, where are they coming from? The world will never know. This tenuous balance in his relationship with his brother, and his desire to set off in the world and to be who he truly wants to be. And when at last he finally encounters this little old lady in the Alpine shepherd boy that she brings down, you know, and she immediately shells out in 20s the $140 for his services, and he just pretty much all but consumes the cash. I think in that moment he feels a connection to this kind of client. He feels that he really can do this service, you know. He comes in, everything is relatively straightforward, you know. Sweet little old lady, flirting a little, like, he can handle this stuff. He's in his element. He went out of his element to be able to go into his element, to even really have an element to speak of, because he's been having a really tough time finding people that he can really represent, you know, after everything went pretty horribly wrong with Nacho and company. They're still on the sidelines, so let's not forget that, ladies and gents. It's gonna be, there's gonna be a party at some point in time. But anyways, so we see that he just so desperately wants somewhere to begin, you know? He's ready and willing to do whatever it takes to just establish himself and just to move forward. And so we see he like gets all the little Jello cases that he takes to the nursing home, and he's going around like he watches this old, like, some late night television special just to be able to tailor the perfect suit to go and deliver the Jello and shake hands and hug on the old people. Like, he is a freaking peach with those seniors. I mean, adorable. Adorable. You can't help but love him in this situation. And I mean, he's not, like, we've really seen him bust out his showmanship in very big ways. And so it seems kind of like he's dialing it back a little bit in order to kind of fit this audience and to be able to gain the trust of the kind of people that he wants to serve and get business from. But it'll be interesting to see, you know, where does this fall apart, you know? Elder law. Clearly that's not the end game for him. This is just an opportunity to get an audience, to get a niche, and to, you know, prosper. Do something. And then of course this is all, it all goes really well, very much hand in hand with what's going on with his brother. And as anticipated, the pain is pretty much completely psychological, as is evidenced by the, when he's in the hospital room and the nurse is distracting him with conversation and just goes and turns on the electronic bed after Jimmy raised hell to be able to get his brother back in the safety of the dark. And he's so... Something that I love about the character of Jimmy that we really get to see on parade in the show is the fact that he's so good at representing people in dire straits, that's for sure. Because the viciousness with which he stands up for his brother and defends him. But then there's that scary volatile side where he's equally as ready to just go in to institutionalize his brother just so he can cash him out. Like, I definitely feel like the pendulum is going to be swinging in upcoming episodes as he decides what to do with that. He does end up taking his brother home and getting him back where he is, and just the conversation they have is so... I love the actor who portrays Chuck, because we as the audience, we don't feel alienated from him. In fact, we are invited to enter his consciousness, however jarring and frightening it can be, like when he runs outside to go steal the neighbor's paper, and just that absolute bedlam that he experiences in booking it across the street. And it's fascinating too, the tie that Jimmy draws between his exploits and the anxiety that Chuck experiences. And perhaps maybe this whole crazy electromagnetic radiation disease condition construction thing, that like maybe it's something that has been created by Chuck to deal with the stressors of his family life. Perhaps just having this anxiety in and of itself is too frightening. It's too overwhelming to deal with. And so he has constructed this physiological condition to explain everything and to kind of fall back on. So at least, you know, he's in pain because of something that he can quantify. He can quantify, you know, the electromagnetic radiation that is produced by individual electronic devices, but accounting for the stress and anxiety that he feels because of his not-so-do-gooder brother and all the crazy shit he's had to bail him out of in the past, and the constant fear that it's going to come back, and that slippin' Jimmy is just gonna slip right around the corner and everything's gonna go spiraling into chaos again. It's like, the writing is so brilliant that way, that we can kind of explore this and really sink our teeth into it and start to understand what exactly is going on under the surface of this, under the space blanket. And of course, as soon as Jimmy explains everything away and declares that he's going on the straight and narrow into elder law, and Chuck accepts it, he gets up out of the blanket to go make the coffee that Jimmy was originally saying he was going to. And, you know, he sinks into the couch and is like, oh, the headache. And, you know, we see him kind of cringing and he's in pain and stress. And then after that conversation, he gets up and he's like, well, somebody's got to make the coffee, you know? So that all indicates just, it's such a great performance. I love the dynamic of the brothers. And again, I'm really scared as to what Chuck's fate is going to be, because I don't think that he is going to make it to the beginning of Breaking Bad, at least. Like, I'm not so sure that he's going to be able to be a part of that picture, and I'll be curious to see too kind of how Kim factors into everything, because she's been a really interesting element too. I like her friendship with Jimmy, because, and I have a sense that probably at some point it's going to verge into friendship with, you know, friends with benefits territory, but meh, whatever. Like, I feel like they balance each other out really well, and she seems to appreciate him, and it's not quite as begrudging of a relationship as I thought it was going to be after that first phone call that they had, you know. And then, of course, we see, too, that now Mike has got Jimmy's card, and it appears, if you guys, I'm not going to say anything in this video about the preview for next week. The only thing I will say is that it involves Mike. So I think that there is the beginning of a connection, some kind of ongoing thing between the two of them, and maybe Mike's past scenarios. I'm not sure yet, but it's going to get very interesting for sure. And I think that what we're going to be seeing from here on out is the development of these core characters alongside some of the cases that that Jimmy takes on along the way. But what's cool and what I feel confident about with this show is the fact that it's not just going to be some case of the week where things don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Everything that Jimmy faces fundamentally alters who he is, and now he's devising this business strategy of sorts, and he's gonna write it out until the next time. It's time to get slippery up in here. Stickler for justice sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't stick. Sometimes you gotta make your own way. So yeah, it was a really good episode. Very different, very good. There's not a single chapter to this story that I have not enjoyed the crap out of, and I hope that you guys feel the same. So thank you guys so much for watching my review. Please leave all of your thoughts and feelings and things in the comments. I'd be happy to meet you guys down there and respond to whatever I can when I can. So thank you guys again. And of course, whatever I forgot, do bring it down into the comics. Yes, let's write a comic in the comments. It'll be, it could work. We could figure something out, you know, draft it up. Anyways, I know that there's a lot of incredibly quotable material in this episode that I didn't really discuss here, so leave your favorite quoted moments. I love the part where Mike is like, "Oh, be still my heart," when Jimmy actually hands over the stickers. I think that was that is going to be the basis for their connection. I don't know if it's going to be a friendship, but I feel like he earned enough respect points to be considered by Mike for whatever legal matters he's going to have coming in the future. But okay, I'm gonna go to bed. That's what I'm gonna do. So you guys take care, and as always, oh yeah, Bates Motel, March 9th. I'm gonna be reviewing that again. And I think that's everything. So you guys take care, and I will be back before you know it.